Multiplying decimals. Today's joke is, what do you call cheese that's not your own? Nacho cheese. We're continuing at the same Indiana academic standards, 7.2.1 and 7.2.4. Tonight, though, we're going to be multiplying decimals. And we're still going to use estimation to check for accuracy. We have several properties again tonight. The first property of multiplication we're going to look at is the identity property of multiplication. This property states that the product of 1 and A is A. In other words, what do you multiply a number by to get itself? Identity means identical. So what are we going to multiply a number by to get the same number? We're going to multiply by 1. 5 times 1 equals 5. 1 times 5 equals 5. A times 1 equals A, and 1 times A equals A. So when we multiply anything times 1, we're going to get the same number. You've known that for a really long time. You just didn't know that it was called identity property of multiplication. The second property today is a zero property. The zero property is just the product of 0 and any number is 0. So in other words, when you multiply by 0, you get 0. Again, you've known that for a long time. We just didn't know it was called the zero property. 5 times 0 equals 0. 0 times 5 equals 0. A times 0 equals 0. And 0 times A equals 0. Commutative property of multiplication is our third key concept or property today. Commutative, again, is changing the order of factors, does not change the product. In other words, you can rearrange the numbers. Doesn't matter how you multiply or what order you multiply in, you're still going to get the same answer. Taking a look at our first example, 5 times 2 is exactly the same as 2 times 5. In terms of algebra, A times 2 is exactly the same as 2 times A. The final property today is associative property of multiplication. That's changing the grouping of factors does not change the product. It's moving the parentheses. When all you're doing is multiplying, again, it doesn't matter how you group the numbers together, you're always going to get the same answer. This is great to put different numbers together to get easier numbers to multiply together and be able to do more things in your head. If we take a look at our numerical example, we can move the parentheses around the 2 times 5. That would actually make the problem easier because 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 3 is 30. Now I realize these numbers are very small and you probably could do it the other way in your head also, but when we get into larger numbers, it makes it really great to be able to move those parentheses. Looking at the algebra problem, same situation. We don't have to multiply A times B first. We can move those parentheses and multiply B times C. Pause the video at this time if you still need to copy down some of the notes. Don't forget, you also have to have a question written at the end of the notes by the time you're done to share in the class. Something you don't understand, something you still are confused with. If there's nothing that you're confused about, then come up with a question that you know the answer to that somebody else might have. There are 3 main steps to multiplying decimals. Step 1 is you're going to line your numbers up on the right-hand side. Step 2 is you're going to multiply. Now I know a lot of you have used lattice multiplication. If you want to continue with lattice, that's fine, but I'm going to show you the traditional algorithm today. Step 3 is count the number of digits after the decimal points in the problem and place the decimal point in the answer so there are the same number of digits after the decimal. That sounds a little confusing. Right now, just get it all copied down and I'll explain it as we look at the examples. Before we begin the problem, we're going to estimate. So let's round to the nearest whole number. 11 and 4/10 rounds to 11. 3 and 6/10 rounds to 4. 11 times 4 is 44. So we know our answer should be fairly close to 44. We're not going to do anything with this left problem. We're going to work everything out over here on the right. Look at how we've lined up the numbers on the right-hand side. Now we're ready to begin multiplying. In the traditional algorithm, we're going to take 6 times 4, which is 24. Record the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Record the 8. 6 times 1 is 6. Record the 6. Now we're ready to multiply by the 3. We're going to skip over a place value because it's almost like we're multiplying by 30 terms here. So 3 times 4 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. We need to cross out that previous carry so that we don't get confused before we carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. Record the 4. 3 times 1 is 3. Once you're done doing the multiplication, now we're ready to add the two answers together. 4 plus nothing is 4. 8 plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 6 plus 4 is 1. Is 11. Write the 1. Carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. Now we're ready for step 3. Count the number of digits after the decimal point in the problem. If we look at our problem, we have 2 digits after the decimal point. That means we're going to come down to our answer and we're going to count 2 digits and place our decimal point. So our final answer is 41 and 4/100ths. Our product of 41 and 4/100ths is close to our estimate of 44. Pause the video at this time if you still need to copy down some of the notes. Don't forget, you also have to have a question written at the end of the notes by the time you're done to share in the class. Something you don't understand, something you still are confused with. If there's nothing that you're confused about, then come up with a question that you know the answer to that somebody else might have. Now we're going to use the multiplication properties to help us solve a problem mentally. We have the problem 2 times 4 and 97 thousandths times 5/10. Here's what you think. You should look for compatible numbers that are going to be very easy to multiply. The product of 2 and 5/10 is 1. Then the product of 1 and 4 and 97 thousandths is 4 and 97 thousandths. Here's why it works. We can use the commutative property to rearrange the numbers. We can exchange the 5/10 and the 4 and 97/100ths. Then we use the associative property to group together 2 times 5/10. Well, 2 times 5/10 is 1, so then we use the identity property, which is 1 times any number is that number. So 1 times 4 and 97/100ths is going to give us 4 and 97/100ths. So we took really a complicated problem and made it very simple to solve in our head. Let's try a few more problems together. Let's look at number 1. We're going to take 3 and 7/10 times 9. We need to line the numbers up on the right, and then we're going to multiply. 9 times 7 is 63. Record the 3, carry the 6. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 6 is 33. Record the 33. Now, count how many digits are after the decimal point in the problem. We only have 1. So that means we're only going to have 1 digit after the decimal point in our answer. So our answer is 33 and 3/10. Line up the problem on the right-hand side. 1 times 3 is 3. Record the 3. 1 times 4 is 4. Record the 4. 1 times 1 is 1. Now we're ready to multiply by the 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Record the 4, carry the 2. 8 times 4 is 32, plus 2 is 34. Record the 4, carry the 3. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11. Record the 11. Now we're ready to add. 3 plus 0 is 3. 4 plus 4 is 8. 1 plus 4 is 5. 1 plus nothing is 1, and 1 plus nothing is 1. Now we're ready to count the number of digits after the decimal point in the problem. We have 3 numbers after the decimal point in the problem. So we have to have 3 numbers after the decimal point in our answer. So our decimal point needs to be placed between the 1 and the 5. Write down the problem and line the numbers up on the right. We're going to start by multiplying by 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Record the 2, carry the 1. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 is 29. Record the 9, carry the 2. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 2 is 34. Record the 34. Now we're ready to multiply by 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Record the 5, carry the 1. You do have to cross out the previous carry before carrying the 1. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 is 36. Record the 6, carry the 3, but be sure to cross out the previous carry. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 3 is 43. Record 43. Now you're ready to add. 2 plus 0 is 2. 9 plus 5 is 14. Record the 4, carry the 1. 1 plus 4 plus 6 is 11. Record the 1, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 7. And 4 plus 0 is 4. Finally, count how many digits are after the decimal point in the problem. We have 3, the 7, 3, and 4. So in our answer, we have to have 3 digits after our decimal point. So our decimal point goes between the 7 and the 1. Our final answer is 47 and 142 thousandths. And now to our final example. We're going to use mental math to solve 2 and 5 tenths times 6 and 3 tenths times 4. We need to think about compatible numbers. What 2 numbers can we multiply together in this problem mentally? Well, 2.5 times 4 is actually 10. So then we have 10 times 6.3, which would give us a total of 63. Much easier to do than to work out all of the multiplication, solving it in the order that it appears.
This concludes today's lesson. If you still need to copy any of the notes, please do so now. If you haven't written down any question, you need to write a question down. It can be a question that you already know the answer to, or a question that you actually came up with while you're working the problems that you don't understand. Please be sure to have a question in class with you tomorrow when you come to class. Have a good evening.
Nacho cheese.